So I think this one will be interesting. The perspective of the importance of engineering. Are engineers or people with design expertise, are they more innovative in supply chain?
I would like to initiate this by actually framing potentially the definition, because I believe there is a huge misunderstanding or almost a misconception of what supply chain is. If you actually ask across the spectrum, people will say, oh, it is procurement, oh, it is logistics, oh, warehousing, oh, it's distribution. When in reality, when you look at the supply chain science, it actually encompasses all the different and necessary processes recognizing a deliverable, all the way to making sure the request has been fulfilled to the same individual or company that has made the request. So if you look from a holistic standpoint, supply chain science and the supply chain concept actually encompasses all the different processes. Let's assume someone is ordering a computer. It includes that process in which someone is placing an order either on the web or on the call center, all the way to making sure that computer is being delivered to that same individual, and all the different processes in the middle. So I have been, throughout my life in operations, a believer that that is supply chain, and then you actually break it down in the different aspects so that you can, in the end of the day, fulfill the deliverable to the requestor, right? So when we actually talk about what is more important in a supply chain leader, I would say number one is recognize that you do have all the different disciplines involved in order to actually design, implement, and actually manage a efficient supply chain. So that's the first thing. It is, I'm not sure if it is better this way or that way, but I can definitely say you have to recognize that you need all the different disciplines. Without incorporating all the different disciplines, you definitely will not be optimized, so to speak. And I have some problems with the word optimized because it means a specific objective. And in this case, I believe the objective is the customer satisfaction at the end of the day and the different processes to make it. But it's recognizing that what is important is, yes, we do need all the disciplines, and we need to take into the consideration all the disciplines in order to have an efficient supply chain.
And how important is it to have knowledge of materials, engineering, and other hands-on experience in the design of inventive products?
I think it's extremely important. However, I would not say that the project manager or the leader of the supply chain process has to have the knowledge of all those disciplines. He or she will have to have the collaboration, and he or she will have to have the support of all those different disciplines.
So for the example, there's some examples of like Honda, Apple, and BlackBerry, where these companies have leaders who come from or have experience in the design part of their business.
I would say the reason for the success is that there is a combination of marketing acuity and I would say a very good perception of a user experience combined with operations excellency. And let's take example of Apple. Steve Jobs has Tim Cook, and Apple will not do what they have been doing if Steve Jobs didn't have Tim Cook or Tim Cook didn't have Steve Jobs. So the combination of both make what Apple is. And the vision that you have to have a user experience combined with operations excellency, and in other words, when you have the design of the product and you are aiming at the consumer or the ultimate customer in this case, several aspects of the transformation processes are also taken into consideration so that you have the ultimate customer experience being achieved at the proper cost, at the, I would say, almost the returns and the profitability of that process. It's also dependent on how you deliver that product, because you can have the ultimate customer experience and the best product in the world from a consumer standpoint. However, if you don't deliver correctly, you're going to go bankrupt in a very short period of time. So my take, and I believe what is important, is those different disciplines do not walk separately. They have to be tied together, and almost like if you have a pentagon and you try to elevate the pentagon, it has to be in equilibrium and flat and go up in spiral, so to speak, so that all the 5 different points, and in this case, why the 5 points? It's engineering, it is operations, it is marketing, sales and marketing, it is procurement, it is the supply base, and so on and so forth. So all those different stakeholders of the process, they have to be in equilibrium in a level playing field, and then you can grow them together for a successful product launch. So it is not a linear, it is actually a multi-dimension supply chain approach.
What are the challenges of having this equilibrium of all the different disciplines? I mean, I'm sure there's many.
I would say that the important point is to recognize they exist, number one. Number two, that they have to be in equilibrium. Temporarily, in every company and every situation sometimes will force some of the stakeholders to be out of equilibrium, so one could be pushing more than the other. However, from a strategy standpoint, in the mid to long term, they have to go back to equilibrium, otherwise you don't grow successfully. So I would say the biggest challenge is to recognize that, and by recognizing it, taking the proper actions in this case, to bring them into equilibrium. And sometimes, and we have seen this every day, you react to a specific problem in the supply chain, and you cause 2-3 others if you don't analyze the whole point from a root cause standpoint to begin with, but in lieu of those different stakeholders. Otherwise, you're going to impact them differently. So I think the biggest challenge is to recognize that you can't address just one point of the multidimensional discipline. You have to deal with them together. That's why the notion of a team that we discussed before, it's actually so important, because the leader has to recognize that he has the need to bring the different skill sets. The next step is to have those skill sets talking to each other and making sure they are in equilibrium. So the leader has to make sure those things happen, I would say, and that's the biggest challenge. Well, it's interesting because it's something that it has been I would say, a point of contention for myself for quite, I would say at least for the last 10, 15 years, since I started using SCORE and, we start developing the whole approach with PRTM, is that lots of executives and lots of leaders in the business world, when you mention supply chain, they believe, it is the it is the back end of my business. It is, how the materials flow into the manufacturing or how the distribution is made. And there is this lack of knowledge that supply chain is the overall collection of processes that, deliver a deliverable to the requester. And I would say until today, there has a big misconception.
Logipi.